Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to create a web API using ASP.NET Core. Now ASP.NET Core is part of the new .NET Core framework which came out pretty recently. So a web API, if you don't know what a web API is, it's also known as a REST or RESTful Service API, and you can basically see it as a service that you expose over each HTTP, for having it accessible over the internet or over your company's intranet network. Now, the reason why we would like to have a web API is if you want, say, if you want to expose some methods in your database, database operations and database objects, say over the internet or over your network, and you want specifically a central repository through which you can access say this data layer that you're creating. It doesn't need to be limited to a data access layer. It can be pretty much anything that you want to expose as an API for other teams to work on. But now for today's example, I'm going to show you how to create basically a data access layer in the form of a web API, and it's going to be a central repository, as I said, for your database access. So this is very handy. Practically why I would want to do this is if you have a distributed environment where there's many client apps who want to connect to your data repository, and this is a good example for where you want to use it, in a real business situation. So we're going to do it in ASP.NET Core. And the thing is, it's virtually the same doing it in ASP.NET Core versus the older .NET framework. The way you code and set up your service is just about exactly the same. So if you do look at the .NET Core, now there's a bit of confusion regarding what .NET Core and ASP.NET Core is. So the .NET Core is basically a runtime which can execute code that you built on this .NET Core framework, as opposed to the standard .NET framework. So both of them are runtimes. You get the .NET Core and you get the older .NET framework. Now in terms of ASP.NET Core, so ASP.NET Core can both run on .NET Core or on the old .NET framework. So that's the way you distinguish between them. The reason why you would want to use, make use of .NET Core these days is, first of all, it's cross-platform now these days. So there used to be this huge gap between, Microsoft .NET development and say, guys developing in the Linux or the Mac OS space. So they're kind of closing that gap now by bringing in .NET Core, which goes cross-platform, so you can basically compile your apps in a Mac OS or a Linux environment using your Visual Studio Code, using your Visual C# libraries to compile the code and actually install it and run it on any platform, Mac OS or Linux or Windows for that matter. So it's very handy in that way if you want to create a cross-platform application. Another thing is that .NET Core and ASP.NET Core specifically is tuned for performance. It's about, Microsoft says it's about 10 times as fast as the older .NET. So it's in performance you gain a pretty lot in terms of speed and also scalability. So it's a very nice new addition from Microsoft, I must say. So if you want to look at possible scenarios, why would you want to, if you want to choose between ASP.NET Core and the normal ASP.NET. So ASP.NET Core obviously is built for Windows, Mac OS and Linux, where ASP.NET is just for Windows. Another thing is in ASP.NET Core you can't use old web forms, ASPX web forms, so you're kind of forced to use the MVC model. Another advantage of using ASP.NET Core is that you can have multiple versions on the same machine. Okay, whereas in ASP.NET you can only have one version of the app on one machine. ASP.NET Core you can develop in Visual Studio for Mac, in Visual Studio Code using C#, F#. VB.NET, as I understand, is not yet available for ASP.NET Core. Okay, and then there's obviously the performance, which is much better in ASP.NET Core versus ASP.NET. Now, some scenarios where you would not want to use .NET Core is when your application requires the use of some libraries that's only available on the .NET framework. So not all libraries that you use to code in has been ported over to the .NET Core yet. So there's if you want to have a specific use of specific older libraries, you're going to have to compile it in the classic .NET framework. Now, for instance, seeing that we're doing a data access layer here, we're going to use Entity Framework, but now we're going to use like a lighter version of the Entity Framework, which is specifically for ASP.NET Core. And as you will see in this example, it's a bit more difficult. There's more manual coding involved. Whereas before in the normal ASP.NET you have like a database model that you can drag and drop database objects, and it generates the code automatically for you. So in this case it's a bit more coding, but you will see it really increases in the speed and the performance of the app. And yeah, as I say, it's multi-platform, cross-platform compatible. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the actual coding. I'm going to show you how to set up a basic web API using the ASP.NET Core template, or specifically the web API template to do this application.
Okay, so in Visual Studio 2017, go to File, New, and Project. And here you will see under Visual C# there's a section called .NET Core. So that contains the project templates for .NET Core application templates. And we're going to select ASP.NET Core Web Application. And let's just give it a name. Let's call it Employee Web API. Okay. Okay, and here you will see right at the top you have a couple of options. So you can either use .NET Core or the .NET Framework. Both of them will give you the option for ASP.NET Core 2.0 application. So we want to use the .NET Core Framework, and remember that this will compile then for we use the .NET Core runtime to make your application cross-platform. Okay, right. So, and if you use .NET Framework, then of course it's going to be limited to running on Microsoft Windows. So let's choose .NET Core, ASP.NET, and we go for the Web API template over here. The rest you can leave the default settings. I'm not going to do any authentication for now. Go OK. And then give Visual Studio some time to create that project. Okay, so it's finished creating the framework for the app. So go to your Solution Explorer on the right hand side. If for some reason you don't see your Solution Explorer, just go onto the View in the menu and click the Solution Explorer, or use the shortcut key Ctrl-Alt-L to bring it up. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to go to the dependencies. I'm going to right click and say Manage NuGet Packages. And what we want to search for is the Entity Framework, specifically the ASP.NET Core Entity Framework. So we can't use the normal .NET framework, entity framework, because that is not compatible with the .NET Core runtime. Okay, so we're going to browse and say your ASP.NET Core entity framework. Okay, maybe not that. Let's try. Oh, here we go. Entity framework core.sql server. Okay, that's the right one. So you can see in the list, it'll come up. You can click on it there. As you'll see, this is the specific one for the core, for the .NET Core framework and SQL Server. So you're going to click here on install on the right hand side, and that should install the NuGet package for this framework core SQL Server. Okay, and that's finished. Okay, great. So next thing, what we want to do is to create a new folder. So right click on your Employees Web API project and go to add folder. Okay, so you can name this folder, say models. It's going to contain all your classes, and let's add a class, and we're going to call it employees. So basically, what this app is going to demonstrate is how you can access a simple database with an employees table, and you're going to expose it via this web API. Okay, so here we got public class employees, and this is basically going to contain your definition for the employees object. So what you can do is to use this annotation called tables, table annotation, and in the inverted commas you give state the name there for the table. Now this has to refer to the name of the table in your database. So we're going to go to the database a bit later. Now see here, it's got a problem. It doesn't recognize this annotation or this attribute. So we're just going to click here on the light bulb and say select the using system.componentModel.dataAnnotations.schema. This is a namespace that you have to use reference in order to access the table attribute. Okay, you can see the same thing here, required. This is just a way of saying that this is a required property. Just import the system.componentModel.dataAnnotations attributes there. Okay, and there you go. So basically, you have a class called employee, and this will basically correlate to a table in your database called employees. Okay, and we're going to make it very simple. What you see over here, the database generated option dot identity means that in your database it means that the employee ID will be automatically generated. It's not going to be a manual insertion. Okay, there we go. Okay, public int employee ID. We make a get set property here. Okay, it's going to obviously refer to your primary key in the table, employee ID, which is going to be auto implemented. Okay, right, then we have public strings first name, last name, and city. Okay, we're going to keep it very simple. Right, so the next step is to add another class, which is going to be our DB context class, and this is going to be for actually accessing the table in your SQL Server database. So you're going to click on Add Class. Okay, and let's call it employee DB context. Click Add. Okay, right. So basically, you have now your employees class, which refers to the table called employees, and it's got the same properties than the columns that your database table will have. And now we have the employee DB context, which is basically going to connect to our database, and this is basically a class to or database context class to access your database. And yeah, what is going to be important is um, the employees database or DB set. Now this refers to the table once again, okay, and it's of type employee. If you go to definition, it'll come right here to the employee class that you just created a few moments ago. Okay, so it's basically a collection of employees. Next, you have protected override void on configuring. This is to say that on the on configuring event in your database context, you're going to specify the connection string. So you're going to use options builder dot use SQL server, and then in brackets you're going to have your actual connection string. So just to explain the connection string here, it says your data source equals, and then this is where you're going to put your name of your SQL server. This is the actual name of your SQL server, and then initial catalog refers to the catalog or the database you're going to point to, and then we have the name employees, which is the name of our database. Integrated security equals SSPI means that it will log on to the SQL Server with your Windows credentials or your Windows logon. If you're not using integrated security, then you're obviously going to have to specify the user ID and the password. So for now, let's just keep it on integrated security. Right, so it's got a couple of red squiggles here. Let's just see if we can add some namespaces. Microsoft Entity Framework Core. You need to put it here in using here. See there above. Okay, and yeah, that takes pretty much care of all the red squiggles here. Okay, great. So now basically we have our database context, and this is all you need to set up your application to connect to the database. And we have our employees class. So now the next step is to go to our SQL Server database, and we're going to create a table. If you don't have a database yet, just click on databases, right click and say new database. Okay, SQL is a little bit slow today. Okay, and on the new database dialog box, you will just specify your database name and click OK. Okay, since I already have one, I'm just going to go to tables and I'm going to right click and say new table. Okay, and it brings up an empty table. So what we want here is to have a primary key called employee ID. Okay, that's your column name, employee ID. And remember that corresponds to what we created in the class. The column names you see here will correspond to the properties in the class. Okay, let's make it data type int. Okay, and it needs to be primary key, so you need to click on the primary key button over here. Okay, right, now scroll down a bit here on the right hand side and go to identity specification. Change it to yes. Okay, and automatically it will give 1 and 1 values to the identity increment. That means it will automatically increment each time you insert a new record. It will automatically create an employee ID for you. Okay, next one is the first name. Create a first name column and data type invar_char50. Okay, this is going to be text. Then last name, same thing, and city, same thing. Okay, and you can click on save your table. And you want to enter some data. So how you do that is right click on your table. Okay, if it doesn't show up in your tables, just click on the refresh or hit F5. Okay, there's the table, and click on edit top 200 rows. You're going to add some people into your employee table. Okay, so you can basically just go like this. You don't have to fill in anything for the employee ID. It's auto-generated. First name, put in the name there. Last name and city. Okay, enter, and that will add a person to your table. Okay, and so just add a couple of employees there. And once you are finished with that, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is go to the controllers folder and rename the default values controller to employee controller. Okay, and make sure also to rename it in the actual CS file in the code. Okay, they just renamed it for us. So you have an employee controller, and the controller now in MVC is basically where all your server-side code is going to happen. You'll see that it comes with default. You have an HTTP GET default method there, and that is for reading data. Okay, reading data back. You have a another GET with an ID is when you want to read a specific record by ID, retrieve get a record by ID. Then you have HTTP post method. Posting is for adding or creating a new row of in your database, and put is to perform updates or modify situations where you want to modify an existing record. And then lastly you have HTTP delete, and that is for obviously deleting a record by its ID. Okay, so we're not going to use these default methods. We're going to be writing our own ones. So you can go and delete all of this which sits inside the class. Okay, so first off you're going to have an HTTP GET, and it's going to return a list of type employee, because employee is your data type here, which of course refers to your employee class that we created in the beginning. So you can see it's not picking it up, it's not getting it because it doesn't know in which namespace to look. So you can add a using statement using employees with API.models, because it's inside the models folder. We go there we go. Okay. So what we're going to do here is by creating, using the database context, the DB context class, employee DB context, which you also created a bit earlier, and we're going to instantiate it, and then going to say basically return db.employees.toList, and this will return a data set of your employees, of all the records in the employees table in your database. Okay, the next method is your HTTP GET. Okay, with passing in a ID parameter for retrieving a specific employee from the table, and it's basically the same as the GET. And you're just going to instantiate another instance of the employee DB context class, and you're going to say return db.employees.find using the find method on the entity framework, passing it in. Passing it in the ID as a parameter to retrieve a specific employee. Okay, next on we have a HTTP post, which is for adding or creating new records, employees in our case. And it's going to look like this. It has to be of type iActionResult post, and then in the brackets you're going to have from body employee object or OBJ, and this is going to pass in an object of employee, of type employee, which is going to be the new object that you want to add to your database. And you're going to instantiate again a new instance of employee DB context, and we're going to say db.employees.add, because we're actually adding or creating a new record. And you're going to call the db.saveChanges method on the entity framework, and this will actually save it to your database, persist changes to your database. And you're going to return a new object result, employee added successfully, text message there. Okay, and then the next step is to be able to do an update an existing employee in your database. You're going to have HTTP put with ID in square brackets there. Once again, action result put. You're pausing it in the ID, okay, as well as an employee object that you want to update. And once again, you're going to instantiate a new instance of an employee DB context. You're going to say db.entry, and you specify employee as data type dot state equals entity state dot modify, which means you're telling the framework to that you're giving it the instruction that you're actually going to modify an existing row of data in the database. Okay, it has a problem with entity state, so let's see, we can add a using statement here, Microsoft.entity framework core. Okay, and that will add it to the top of your class. Okay, there's the namespace it's importing. Okay, so you're going to also call the db.saveChanges method once again to save or update that employee in the database. Okay, the last one is a delete. You're going to have HTTP delete attribute on the top of your method. You're going to call it delete, and you're passing it in ID of the specific employee that you want to delete. And you're going to call the remove method on the entity framework. You will pass it in. You will use the find method as in the update to find a specific employee, and you pass it in the ID, and telling it to remove this specific employee that it just retrieved from your database. Save changes, and pass back a success message like that. So this is basically your controller, and this is where your logic, your server-side code is sitting with your CRUD operations, your create, read, update, and delete. Okay, great. So what we're going to do next is to actually let's see if we can run it as it is here. You'll see that we'll use IIS Express, which is a little web server that sits locally on your machine. It comes with Visual Studio. You're going to just click on the run play button there. Okay, great. So it's firing up in your browser, and you'll see here in the URL, it's looking for this URL, The local host, which obviously refers to your local machine, that is the port number in IIS Express, and then it goes to API/values. Now you'll see that it cannot find it um, because values refers to um, the values controller which we just renamed. Okay, so this routing is incorrect. We need to update it. So let's go back into our application. Stop it for now. Okay, and go to your Solution Explorer on the right hand and to Properties, Launch Settings.json. And here you will see it actually specifies a couple of settings, such as your application URL, which you can change if you want to. And you'll see here which says launch URL API/values. So here you need to rename it to employee because that is the name of your controller. Same here, employee, and it's no longer called values but employee. Okay, and then we can run it again and see if that makes a difference. Okay, let's see what it does this time around. Okay, it goes to this URL, it routes to API/employee, and there we go. So this returns, this is your default method on the web API, and it returns basically all of your records in the table because we didn't specify a specific ID to retrieve. So we can go here and say /1, enter, and this will return the employee with employee ID 1. Okay, you can see how that works. In ID 4 and returns a different one, employee with employee ID 4. Okay, so basically this tells us now that that our web API is working in a very basic state. We can access data from our database and basically see a couple of our records. Okay, so let's stop the application first. Now what we want to do is we want to consume this service. We want to consume it in say another client application. So what you typically do, you will publish this or deploy this web API as you would deploy a normal web application or website to IIS on your web server. So I'm not going to do that. Basically, I'm just going to let it run. If you go here to your taskbar, you will see you've got a IIS Express. Right click on there and make sure that the application is still running in IIS Express. We will see. Okay, it's no longer running. So let's just have it run here in the background because we are going to create a client application and point it to this specific URL. So this can be a URL on your web server on the internet or on the World Wide Web on the internet itself, and you'll be able to connect to it by specifying this URL. Connect to it over the internet from anywhere in the world. Basically, access your service, your web service. Okay, so now it's running. Let's check our IIS Express here. Okay, and there we go. Employees API. It's running on this location, localized, and on this port 56842. Okay, so now we know we can actually go to a client application, such as an MVC app. So let's go into a client app and see if we can actually connect to this service. Okay, so let's just go quickly and create a new MVC web application. Let's just maybe stop this. Okay, so let's go and create a quick new web application. And this time we're not going for the core .NET Core, but the regular ASP.NET Web Application .NET framework, just to show you that a normal client app can actually consume the .NET Core Web API. Okay, let's just call it Web API client, or whatever you want to call it. And select MVC as your template there. Okay, and just give it a while to actually get that the framework together. Okay, and let's go to Solution Explorer. Okay, right, so here we have our MVC app. So we're going to go to controllers, to the home controller. Just double click it to open it up. Okay, and here we're going to insert some code. Let me just grab it here from one I've done a little bit earlier prior to this. And okay, so what you need here basically is an index method. Now in our case it's going to be have an action result. Public async, and async means it's going to execute asynchronously, which we need for actually making a connection to the via HTTP. Let's just correct the squigglies here. We need to add some namespaces using system.net.http, and this as it's part of the multi-threading namespace. Let's just add it. Here we go. And this is just the media type with quality header values, just to specify that it's going to be reading JSON or application data from our API. Just get the IntelliSense coming up here. It's somehow failing at the moment. There we go. It's using system.net.http.headers. Okay, and of course here, okay, so let me go through the code here. So you need a HTTP client, which will access the actual web API. You need a URL. So let's just put in the right URL here. So go to bottom right of the screen and check, okay, there's nothing running at the moment. So let's just go back to our API and run it again in IIS Express. Just to get so we can grab the actual port that it's running on your local machine. Now, of course, in the real world, you would publish this to an IIS web server. I've shown you in previous videos that how easy it is to publish a website to IIS. Basically, the same thing can happen here. You can install your web API exactly the same way on an IIS web server, and then point your client to the URL wherever it's running on the server. Okay, let's just see the IIS Express is running. and it's on port 56842. Okay, so there you've got our URL. So now when this MVC client app starts up, it's going to this index method, and what's happening here basically is you're instantiating a new instance of HTTP client, telling it which URL to go to, and you're adding it a header value of application slash JSON data type. Okay, so here we have a HTTP response message. And since it's asynchronously, it's going to use the await keyword there to await to get, and you can use the HTTP client dot get async method there or function. You pass in the URL and checking your if response message dot is success status code. So if made a successful connection to the web API, then go ahead. Response data. This is going to capture the raw JSON data, the result. Comes from that web API of yours. So you have response message dot content dot read as string asynchronously dot result. Okay, that gets you the raw data. So now we can also deserialize this object, this JSON object, and we use JSON convert dot deserialize object, and we pass it in a list of type employee info, and this is going to be basically the same structure or the same as our employees class, which refers to our table object in the database. Okay, so this is how you deserialize it, and we just save it into a var there called employees. Okay, and this one we can ignore. Okay, so we're going to say here we're going to use the viewback, which is almost like a kind of global variable in MEC web application. And we're specifying here dot persons equals response data. So we're going to keep in the persons viewback, we're going to keep the raw JSON response data, and then we're going to keep the deserialized, save the deserialized object into viewback.employees. And this you will see we're going to use in the actual view, in the HTML view. Okay, so let's go there. Home, and let's go to the index.cshtml page. And just delete the default code that it's giving you here. Okay, so let's write some code in here. Now this is your view, your CHTML page. Okay, so basically you can, as I've done, just delete all the default code, and here in the topmost div, class jumbotron, inside of here we've got a title H group tag, and just put in some headings here, whatever you want to say there. Raw JSON data returned from the API, from the web API. Okay, and we got here, see that viewback, just like the global session kind of variable, viewback.persons, and that's sorry, let's just make sure what we call it here. Okay, let's just give it a better name here. Let's see, raw data. Okay, like that. And we put that on our view. Okay, so that's going to display the data coming back, the raw JSON data. Then deserialized data we're going to put here. Okay, I have another div here. Okay, let's just take out this div here. It's not really necessary. Okay, we've got a table. Okay, you can give it any ID you want. We've got t head. Okay, which is tag for opening up your th tags here. It's going to be basically the cells in the table. You have employee ID, last name, first name, city, and we have a for each loop here for each var item in viewbag.employee. So it's going to loop through the employees collection we stored in the viewbag, and we're going to say display each of the properties or the column names as you have in your database. Item.employee ID, last name, first name, city, and it's going to loop, and it's going to create a grid basically. So let's see if we run that, what it looks like. So for this example, we're not going to have whole CRUD operations with updating and deleting, but in a part 2 of this video, I'm going to post an example how to actually edit, update, remove, and create new records. This is just for viewing the data, just to give you an idea how to consume this service. This web API that you've written just to push through some data, just to show you how easy that is. See if we can get it up and running in the browser. Okay, it looks like we have a bit of an error here. Oh yeah, it's looking out. It can't find employee info, so let's just create it quickly. Remember, we have to, when we deserialize it, we need to actually have a class by the name we're specifying here. So let's just go and create it here, and this should correspond exactly to your employees class, which corresponds to the table in your database. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's run it. Okay, and there we go. So our page is up and running, and here you can see the data coming back. The table we created, as it's looping through the employees, it's putting them in line by line, and then we get the data back from our web API. There is an issue with the raw JSON return. Let's just have a look and see what's happened there. Oh yes, still says persons. This one must say raw data. Okay, go. Let's just see if we can reload it. Okay, and there we go. There's the raw data stream JSON that we get back. And that's it in a nutshell. That shows you how to create a web API and how to consume it in a client. And this only shows you, this only reads the data. It obviously doesn't yet have functionality for updating, adding, and deleting, and that will be we're looking at next after this. So yeah, in part 2 I will be adding another video part to show you how to do the actual updating and adding and deleting, also using the web API and using some JavaScript on the client side. So there we go. There's our JSON, and the code isn't really that complicated. As you can see, this is all you need to make the connection to the web API. I will be posting this code also so you can copy it from the video instead of having to go and type it out. If you just want to have a quick look at it, I'll be doing that as well. Okay, great. Happy coding, guys.